Hi everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
Got a couple of questions for you, Bridget.
Have you?
You ready?
No, not really.
How many
What?
weeks are there in a year?
52.
How many cards are there in a pack of cards?
I'm assuming there are 52.
Correct. How many times have we done this?
Well, I know that. It's 52.
It's 52, yes. We had a very nice email from a friend of ours who loves cricket as I do and suggested there should be a round of applause for 50 not out. Thank you very much for that. He described our performance as a measured innings, very watchful against difficult bowling, which is perfectly true. And he then asked the question, will you still be batting towards the century, the 100?
Ah.
I think not, because that would be something like 16 weeks.
Yes.
And we are believing that we will be out of this before
yes,
then.
I'm hoping we're going to be going out a little bit more by then.
But thank you very much for
Yeah.
that. That's very encouraging.
Well, yesterday was Ascension Day, which I know is celebrated in some churches more than others. But it struck me that that is the day when suddenly the disciples are on their own. And what do? They do
Well,
exactly what they're told, and they go back into lockdown. Now, they had a nice, clear indication, didn't they? They were told to stay there until the Spirit came. We don't quite, I don't think we can quite equate the instructions from the government in quite the same way, but we are going to
No.
be coming out of this.
Yeah, we are going to be coming out of this. And there will, for some people, there will be two extremes possible. I know, because I know me and I know other people a bit. After all the self-examination that is likely to happen during this time, you may come out of it feeling you're ready for anything, or you may come out feeling you are useless and ready for nothing, like this poor lady here.
Oh, all I can think about is how rotten I am inside. You know what? There seem to be so many sins. If you get rid of one, another one pops up to take its place. I don't think I'll ever be good enough to do anything really useful for God. I mean, I know nobody's perfect, but
Actually, now you mention it. Nobody, you're right, is perfect in that sense, except my friend Donald. Donald has never committed a sin in his life.
well, there isn't anyone who hasn't done anything wrong, is there?
My friend Donald hasn't.
What? He's never done anything wrong. What, you're saying he's a perfect Christian?
What I'm saying is that my friend Donald, he has never stolen, he's never murdered, he's never committed adultery, he's never envied, never lusted, never told a single lie, he's never been guilty of a cowardly act, never hurt anyone, never hit anyone, never hustled, harassed, or hated anyone, or anything else beginning
Come
with H.
on, surely
Donald's never been greedy, slow, thoughtful, avaricious. He's never dropped litter. What else has he never done? He's never disturbed the peace. He's never driven with excess alcohol, never destroyed others' property. Actually, he's never had a single unkind thought. And he holds no grudges. He doesn't gossip. He's never late. He's never caused or condoned conflict of any kind, never complains, never blasphemes, never gets drunk, never overeats. He's never mean or menacing or malicious or anything beginning with M.
But isn't that...
Donald never watches nasty videos, nor does he condemn people who do. He's never judgmental or over-sentimental or harsh or unforgiving. He's never sad, mad or bad. He never smokes, swears, never rude, never stares. Donald has never committed a single sin. Oh, and there's one other interesting thing about Donald.
Oh, and what's that?
He will not be going to heaven.
What? Is that because he's not likely to be very good company?
No. It's because, well, I'll tell you what. Do you want to meet him?
Yeah, of course
wanna
I
meet
want to
him?
meet him.
Oh, hold on. It's in my pocket. Just a minute. Let's get him out. Here you are. Look. He's a little tiny wooden man. I made him. And he won't be going to heaven because he's made of wood.
Yeah, but hold on. I mean, you said he was a perfect Christian.
No, I didn't. You said that. I just told you about all the things he's never done wrong. The trouble with old Donald is that although he's never committed any of the sins I was talking about, he's made of wood. He's never done anything else. He can't. He is made of wood. So? Well, it doesn't matter if you don't do anything wrong for the rest of your life. It doesn't make you a Christian, and it doesn't get you into heaven.
So what will then?
Ah, now that is a very interesting question. And I want to ask everybody listening an interesting question. At least I think it's an interesting question. We travel a lot usually, don't we, when we're not being locked down?
Yes, we do, or we have, certainly.
And we roll up at hotels and we don't know the number of our hotel room till we get there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a couple of times we've arrived at our hotel, gone to the reception desk and given our names, and then they put the key over the counter and they say a couple of times, "You're in room 101." And at that point we say, "Oh, that's what you think of us, is it?" And everybody laughs if they know what I'm talking about, but they don't if I don't. Well, Room 101, those of you who've seen it will know there's a program on television called Room 101. And all those who take part are allowed to dump the thing they don't want into a bin. It just disappears into Room 101. Okay, now, here is my interesting question, at least I hope it is. If King David of the Old Testament appeared on Room 101, what would he put into his bin? What would he place in Room 101? What do you think?
You're going to tell us, aren't you, Adrian?
I am going to tell you. I believe, and if he was here he might disagree with me, but I don't see how he could. I think into Room 101 he would place Psalm 101.
Psalm 101.
Psalm 101.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it is one of his psalms, so
it's
fair
one
enough.
of his psalms, and just have a listen to what David says in Psalm 101.
Right. He says, "I will be careful to lead a blameless life. I will walk in my house with blameless heart. I will set before my eyes no vile thing. The deeds of faithless men I hate, they shall not cling to me. Men of perverse heart shall be far from me. I will have nothing to do with evil." And then,
read
this
the
is
other bit.
interesting.
Yeah.
He goes on, he says, "No one who practices deceit will dwell in my house. No one who speaks falsely will stand in my presence." I'm not surprised he would want to put that in 101.
I would, yes, I would. We know quite a lot about David, don't we?
Well, it's always seemed so sad. I don't know about you, but, you know, when he was a boy, so close to God, and then, of course, there was all the Goliath thing, and then there was all the stuff with Saul and the fact that he was on the run, but he was always close to God. I mean, again and again, he says, "God's my father. God keeps me safe. I'm okay if I'm under the shadow of God's wing."
He really
And he
got
did
things
what he was
right,
told
yeah.
by God, and he was so close and bewildered by evil. So many of the early sons, you know, how can these people be like this? And then, of course, he gets rich. He gets a palace. He gets non-vulnerable. I don't think that's a word, but he gets independent.
It's hard to know, but certainly, I mean, in the springtime, battle time, when the army were away, and he's walking along the roof of his palace.
And he hasn't gone to war.
And he sees somebody called Bathsheba, a very beautiful woman, I imagine, and he sends for her, and he has his evil, or whatever it is, way with her.
Well, he was a king. He could do whatever he wanted.
Likes. And
Absolutely.
she is married to a man called Uriah, who is out fighting fiercely with the head of the David's forces, who's called Joab.
Well, of course, he'd have got away with it, wouldn't he? I mean, it would have just been a one-night stand, pathetic, but not that significant in the grand scheme of things. And then, of course, Bathsheba finds she's pregnant, doesn't she? And that puts him into a very tricky position.
It's one of the most interesting little situations in terms of story. It's fascinating because Uriah comes back from the front, as it were, and comes to the palace to see David, and he's all up for it. You know, he is a soldier. His duty is to the king, and David desperately wants him to go home, so he'll sleep with Bathsheba, so that the baby will look as though it's Uriah's baby. And he says, "Go back to your home. Go back to your house. Go back.
Yeah.
And Uriah says, "No, I will not go back." And that night he sleeps in the doorway of the palace. He does not go home.
That's right, because you are not allowed to have sex or do anything like that while you're in the middle of battle. So he is absolutely honourable.
Yeah, he is. And David suddenly realizes it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And he sends a message to Joab to make sure Uriah goes right out the front in battle.
Yeah, and that's where it's really horrible now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he's slid into the worst sort of sin.
And he more or less murders Uriah
Yeah.
by doing
Yeah.
that. Now, next thing that happens is interesting because David knew God so well. I mean, they had a relationship like almost nobody else. How he thought he'd get away with this is really difficult to know. I don't think he did, but maybe I know I've shut my mind to some things sometimes that I've done. Maybe he did. But then one evening, the prophet Nathan arrived at the palace, and this is what happened.
It was evening in the palace when the prophet came by.
There was trouble in his manner. There was thunder in his eye.
He was still for a moment. He was framed in the door, and the king said,
Nathan, what are you here for?
The prophet said, David, I've a tale to tell.
So the king sat and listened as the darkness fell.
While the hard-eyed prophet took a seat and began,
The story of a merciless and evil man,
This man
said Nathan.
had a mountain of gold. Sheep by the thousand he bought and sold. He never said, can I afford it or not? What this man wanted, this man got. And one thing he wanted, and he wanted real bad, was the only living thing that a poor man had. And he knew that it was wrong, but he took it just the same.
I'll kill him,
said the king.
You just tell me his name,
It was a lamb,
said the prophet.
just a little baby lamb. But he saw it, and he took it. And he didn't give a damn, and he knew that it was special. He knew it was a friend. He knew about the sadness that would never, never end. And that same man began to plan a far more evil thing.
And David rose and cried aloud, He's going to reckon with the king,
So do you think
said Nathan.
we should stop his little game?
I'm going to smash him,
Shouted David.
You just tell me his name,
Be careful.
said the prophet.
Don't go overboard.
David's eyes, they were shining like the blade of a sword.
Perhaps you should be merciful. Perhaps you should try to understand the man before you say he must die.
But David said, I understand that wrong is always wrong. I am the king. I must defend the weak against the strong. Then Nathan questioned softly.
So this man must take the blame. And the king was screaming.
Nathan, will you tell me his name?
Then a silence fell upon them, like the silence of a tomb. And the prophet nodded slowly as he moved across the room.
And strangely, as he came, he seemed more awesome and more wise. And when he looked at David, there was such sadness in his eyes.
But David's anger burned in him. He drew his sword and said,
I swear before the dawn has come, that sinner will be dead. No more delay, no mercy talk. Give me his name, he cried. And Nathan said,
It's you. It's you. And the king...
Oh, he just died. I've always thought it interesting that was a very sharp, blunt instrument, wasn't it? You get a little story, get drawn into it, and you think, oh, this is terrible. And suddenly it's you.
It's you.
And you have to face the music.
And it was a story about sheep and shepherds, the thing that David had always been so proud of, the thing that he'd written that amazing psalm about, the Lord's my shepherd. And
Probably
suddenly,
the best-known psalm of all psalms.
absolutely.
But he did face the music, We haven't got time to go into the rest of it, but he did get it together, and he still made mistakes later on, but he did get it together. And it's interesting that we have Psalm 101, the one he would put it to his bin, but we also have the one that he wrote to say sorry to God.
And actually we're told, aren't we? It actually says that this psalm was written by David after the prophet Nathan had come.
Exactly. So it's fascinating to have the history and the poetry, which is, I'm sure, a very sincere one from David. I'll just read you a little bit of Psalm 51. But if you're interested, go and read 101 and then read 51. This is a bit from 51. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion. Blot out my transgressions. Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me.
Yeah, and it probably always was. I mean, there were things for him to be able to see that was the case. The horrible things happened. The baby died, and all sorts of other dreadful things happened to his son and to him. But I suppose his relationship with God was restored. And for David, that was so important, that God who'd looked after him all through his youth.
It's probably the most important thing of all. So as we hopefully move out of the dark of this particular time, that's something to go for, something to aim for. It's really important.
And we can always come back. If David could come back after that, any of us can.
Yeah. Good. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.